Robinson Crusoe, written by Daniel Defoe, presentation by Victoria Adams. Robinson Crusoe is a story of a young man imprisoned by his curiosity. He was unfulfilled in his home in York and wanted nothing more than to explore the sea. He set off on a voyage, but his boat was shipwrecked. Being the only surviving member of his crew, Crusoe had to endure the hardships of the island in solitude. To better understand the writing, we must observe the author. Daniel Defoe was considered the first great English 18th century author. Defoe was a political and opinionated writer who wrote over 500 works in his lifetime, the most popular being Robinson Crusoe. Defoe lived through his fair share of excitement. He was imprisoned 7 times for debt, and in 1703 was yet again arrested. He was released by Robert Walpole with intentions of hiring him as a government agent. Defoe took the position and became a journalist and secret agent for the British government. He wrote Robinson Crusoe in 1719 and passed away in 1731. Believe it or not, the plot of Robinson Crusoe was based on a true story, that of Alexander Selkirk. Having run away to sea, Selkirk was a privateer for approximately a year until, in 1704, he was unsatisfied with the conditions on the ship and requested to be left on a deserted island. His captain happily abandoned him, and Selkirk lived upon the island alone for 4 years. Defoe's interpretation of the story was overly exaggerated, Crusoe having been on the island for 28 consecutive years. Nevertheless, Selkirk's story inspired Defoe to write the novel of which we speak today. Certain beliefs of the time that we now acknowledge as controversial also heavily influenced the novel. One example of this is white man's superiority, blatantly exhibited throughout Crusoe's travels. Having heard stories of surrounding native inhabitants, Crusoe was disgusted by their way of life. He bestowed the name savages upon them, simply because their culture differed from that of Crusoe's in Britain. More than anything, he was afraid of interaction with these people. Knowing that cannibals lived close by would no doubt scare those in contact with them. But upon further investigation, the people are proven to be accepting, kind, and loyal. Their traditions seemed atrocious to Crusoe because he had been brought up with different morals. But similar customs were common in ancient times, such as human sacrifices. These ancient civilizations, similar to the native people, saw their actions as honorable. Crusoe saw his way of life as more humane, and though nowadays we would more agree, it was immoral to consider himself superior. Beyond the fascinating tales and adventures of our beloved protagonist are underlying truths of the world. These themes can be divided into 3 categories: the monetary value of a person's happiness, the effect of isolation, and the significance of religion. By being forced to live as a minimalist, Crusoe was able to enjoy the important things in life, rather than obsessing with unattainable desires, money, or success. In the first place, I was removed from all the wickedness of the world here. I had neither the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eye, or the pride of life. I had nothing to covet, for I had all that I was now capable of enjoying. Defoe 131. In today's world, the dissimulation of money and happiness is often displayed in those who are the most successful. Depression and suicide in Olympic gold medalists and celebrities is nowhere near uncommon. Money is a source of corruption, and Crusoe realized this while on the island. The second theme of this story is the effect of isolation. Crusoe had relied on himself for almost the entirety of his stay on the island. For over 15 years, he believed to be the sole inhabitant and was terrified when the native people made their appearance. Thus, fear of danger is 10,000 times more terrifying than danger itself when apparent to the eyes, and we find the burden of anxiety greater by much than the evil with which we are anxious about, and which was worse than all this. I had not that relief in this trouble from the resignation I used to practice, that I hoped to have. Defoe 160. This wasn't the only troublesome effect of isolation. As humans, we need a certain amount of interaction to satisfy our loneliness. Not having that can cause serious mental problems, such as severe social anxiety. In a way, a majority of the world has experienced a sliver of Crusoe's detachment during the global quarantine due to the coronavirus. For those of us who were quarantined, it was a great challenge to integrate back into society. Clinical psychologist Dawn Potter, in the article Coping with Social Anxiety After COVID, stated, "As social distancing restrictions loosen, it's normal to feel some nervousness or anxiety, especially if you've been relatively isolated or in a small bubble during the pandemic and are now starting to socialize in larger groups or with people you haven't seen for a while." Upon Crusoe's rescue, he was exposed to the luxuries he had missed, one of which was formal clothing. Not having worn that fashion in 28 years, he was physically uncomfortable, which is very understandable. His old lifestyle had gone because of his experience on the island. There was little left for him after returning to England. The third theme of the book was the significance of religion. Crusoe, who before inhabiting the island had no religious affiliation, took refuge in the Bible's teachings. During his darkest hours, he found religion as a source of comfort. This holds true with millions of people of all ages and descents. This brings up the topic of moral perspectives, as previously discussed. Crusoe encountered a native of the surrounding island and named him Friday. He began to teach Friday British customs and beliefs, as well as his language. Crusoe, lacking any attempt of understanding Friday or his culture, whitewashed him. Culturally and religiously, this behavior can be seen throughout history, with examples such as colonization and religious crusades. Robinson Crusoe was an instant success in the market. Unlike other literature of the time, which portrayed the protagonist as the hero, Crusoe's character was lifelike and relatable to the audience. He was not only brave, but he was scared, vulnerable, and above all, human. This led the audience to believe the story was indeed true and that Robinson Crusoe was a real human being, when in reality, it was Defoe's genius who brought Crusoe to life. So this brings up the question, is Robinson Crusoe a world classic? Yes, it is. Its themes of greed, isolation, and religion are still very much prevalent in today's world. Thank you for watching.